Friends, good evening and welcome to SPTV Live broadcast slash podcast. Tonight we have a very special guest, a returning guest, a friend of mine named Kelly Galindo, who has done several years worth of work creating a documentary called 26 Seconds on the subject of global sex trafficking. Now, we've done two videos before with her when I first started up the channel when we were all in lockdown during the pandemic in June 2020. You can see here we covered sex trafficking documentary, Hollywood, and healing from trauma. And the second video we did, this one was amazing. Boys are sex trafficked too. And tonight we're going to be picking up from what she's been up to the last few years. This has been a multi-year project of passion and love. And she finally got it sold to television, Epoch TV, which we'll be talking about. And then we're going to cover the aspects of, we'll just talk to her about how people get involved in this, ways to avoid it, how to heal from it, and some of the subjects that we covered before. So without further ado, let's bring on the lovely Kelly Galindo. Kelly, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you, Doug?
Good. It's so good to see you. I remember it was about 3 years ago when we talked. We were all locked down and it was kind of intense. And we covered your documentary. And I just watched your trailer. You've been sending me over links and stuff. And you finally carried on and brought this to fruition. And I know it's been a real passion of love. And it's really important what you're doing, Kelly.
Oh, thanks, Doug. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but worthwhile cause. And first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the show again, and more importantly, how proud I am of your show, how much it's evolved since
Thanks.
since the pandemic, which was crazy. But I think life is a little calmed down, but it's crazy in other ways now. So
Indeed. Indeed.
but anyhow, your show looks great, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Where would you like to start? Well, first of all, can we pretend that people haven't watched the two previous videos? Friends, after this video publishes, there'll be links in the description box to everything we talk about, Kelly's channel, where you can purchase and watch the documentary on Epoch TV. Everything we talk about, as well as the first two interviews that we did, will be linked in the description box. But pretend they don't know anything about you, Kelly. Could you give a brief introduction to, what we're talking about? And then we'll lead into some of the trailers and talk about the different projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I hate to give dates, but it's the truth. Documentaries take like 5 to 10 years, and I was shocked with that number. I thought, no, it couldn't, but it has been. I started in 2016. At that time, I was just going to do a short on sex tourism in Thailand. And when I got there, I just saw that it was not just in Thailand, that it was global, everywhere. And the organization I was with, they were also in India, they were in Nepal, Laos, Philippines, Dominican Republic, like they were everywhere. So I thought, oh my God, I gotta keep filming. So what started out to be, the intention was to be a short doc, and I did come home and edit that short documentary, which that's the interview that I did with you the first time. It was called 26 Seconds, and that title is a statistic. Every 26 seconds, a child's trafficked globally. So horrific. And you and I talked before, Doug, and to be honest, we don't really know what the real number is. There's online sex trafficking, so we don't know that number. And yeah, there's my YouTube channel. So your viewers are also welcome to go on my YouTube channel, and the short is there available. It's right there on the left with the little girl. But they're welcome to see the short. It did really well. It won like 20 awards, and then the pandemic hit, as you know.
Yes. Yes.
Well, before the pandemic hit, though, I was filming for 2 years. I filmed in 9 countries. So after Thailand and Cambodia, I went to Iraq, and that's what now the 26 Seconds ISIS Sex Slaves, the feature doc, is about.
And we'll be playing a clip of that shortly, friends.
Yes. And then after Iraq, I filmed in India, 3 countries in East Africa, Mexico, and here in the US. So it took me about 2 years of filming because I would only film when I wasn't teaching because I'm a professor in film. So we have 6 weeks off in the winter break and we have 3 months off in the summer, and that's when I would film. And so it took me 2 years to film, and then it took me about a year to do all the translations, and then the pandemic hit. And so I didn't know what to do because we weren't even allowed to go to the facilities at our film school. So I just started, I created the YouTube channel, and I just decided that I didn't want to stop. So just wanted to create awareness about the issue. At that time when I started in 2016, not many people were talking about human trafficking and sex
That's
trafficking.
true. It's
Now
definitely got
everyone is, and
more awareness. Yeah.
and I'm so glad it is being talked about in the news, and I'm so glad Sound of Freedom did well. And but when I started, it wasn't being talked about much. So I wanted to create awareness on my YouTube channel. I wanted to market 26 seconds, and I also wanted to highlight, which we'll talk about later, but the nonprofit, because I partnered with over 40 nonprofits.
Right.
But I wanted to highlight some of the nonprofits that are doing really great work in rescue, restoration, and reintegration. But I know that they weren't going to fit in the feature or the doc series. So that's why I created the YouTube channel. So your viewers are definitely welcome to go there, and it educates you. You learn a lot. So the short's available there, as well as trailers, as well as there's a tab titled "Sex Trafficking in America," and there's about 15 videos there, but it's of all the nonprofits that are doing really great work. So those are free, but of course the feature doc. And then after all of that, when the pandemic ended, we went back to teach. I went back to teach. The school was open, and I started editing the feature. And at first, Doug, I thought that I was going to include all the countries in the feature. But when I started, because I started with Iraq, I thought this is a movie in itself because it's a little specific, obviously. In Iraq, it was genocide by ISIS, and they trafficked the Yazidi and Christian girls amongst each other. But it's not like there's a red light district or massage parlors, what it looks like in most third world countries or even here in the US. It was specific, but it was sex trafficking. Anytime somebody is making money off the vulnerability of women and children and buying them for sex, they're being trafficked. So they were included, even though I know, but long story short, that's why I made it a feature doc all in itself, because it was specific.
That's a perfect introduction, and there are no long stories short. So
Yeah.
talk as long as you want, but that's a perfect introduction, Kelly. And I'm sure that I know me and you, we're going to get into some of the intricacies of how this all works. It's not just going to be a dry, because this is a passion of love. I mean, it took you 5 freaking years to
Yeah.
finally, get this to fruition. It's not something that someone would necessarily get into, because you and I met at the actor studio. You were an actress. There were other avenues you could take. And it's just really cool to see you take an avenue that actually kind of matters in this world.
Yeah.
Sorry to get sappy. Anyway, so let me show people the trailer, man, to the where do you want to start with the ISIS, a very specific trailer?
Yeah,
And then
for
we
the
can
feature.
and then we can jump off, Kelly, to the more global areas, the US, what you have coming up next, etc. Because like you said, there's so much to cover, and it's different whether you're in Thailand or the US, for example, or Iraq, like we're gonna see now.
Yeah.
Hence why you have so many upcoming opportunities for more films. So you want to start here with ISIS, and then you'll explain, and I'm sure we'll get into the details of kind of how it all works and how people get sucked into these cults, basically.
Yeah.
23 سال
16 سال
عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خوشکو دایکان یزدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با و حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
وريم بو أو هفت روج بون بو وداعش أذكرت
تامبوم كراقوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بحر في ذا نبو باوان رحم نبو
ودمنا سؤالنا من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس نا ما قبس ناش بيجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned. in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زاروي وان همو جيبرن تي حملي زاروي والدمع واسي سيبان همو جيبرن
وحشیگریەکی تەواو عیارە زڵمێکی یەکجار زۆر گەورە لەم ئافرەتانە کراوە تەعادایەکی زۆر زۆریان لێ دەکرێت ئەمانە ڕۆژانە دەستفرۆشی دەکرێت.
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Wow. Do you want to explain what we just saw there, Kelly?
Yeah. So the three survivors, those are the subjects, the survivors. I actually interviewed 6 survivors, but 3 made it in the final feature. One was when I interviewed her, she was 7. That's where it says I was 7, but she was taken when she was 5. And, and grown men had sex with a 5-year-old. Anyways, and the other 2 survivors, one I think was 16 when she was taken, and when I interviewed her, she was 18. And the other girl was, she had just had a baby, like when she was abducted, like 7 days prior. And when I interviewed her, I think she was 21.
Kelly,
So,
real quick, can I interrupt real quick? Were they in a safe place? How did you even get access to interview
yes,
people?
they were already rescued by the Kurdish army. And Pastor Kevin, who's also subject in the feature, he actually has an organization here in Orange County too, where he rescues survivors. But he rescues girls from Iraq during that time. And he was really good friends with Kahil and Amina, who are not in the trailer, but they're in the feature. And Kahil and Amina are amazing. Kahil was an attorney, and they're Yazidi. And his wife was in the Iraqi parliament, and both of them quit their jobs and started an underground rescue mission to rescue girls. So Kahil and Amin are the ones that rescued those 3 girls and then gave them to the Kurdish army, and the Kurdish army got them to safety. So when I came to Iraq, because I was only 20 miles from Mosul, because at that time ISIS hadn't, Mosul was still occupied by ISIS, so they were only 20 miles away. But they put me in a hotel, and they kind of kept me there for 5 days, and they brought the survivors to me to interview them, and they were safe in Kurdistan. It was actually eye-opening because I felt safe actually in Kurdistan, and the reason being is number one, the Kurdish army is amazing, but secondly, logistically, where they're located, there's a mountain behind them. So ISIS, they would go in and commit genocide in all these little villages, but they wouldn't go to Kurdistan because there was only one way in, and the Kurdish army so strong, they would have been killed. So the people in Kurdistan would walk around like nothing was happening. It was the weirdest thing. And they were only 20 miles from Mosul, where ISIS occupied. So it was surreal, it was a bit strange. But I felt safe there with the Kurdish army anyways. Yeah.
And you were kind of did part of that safety feel like you were on a mission and being protected or whatever, not to be all deep or anything?
Well, 2 things. Number one, people always ask me, were you afraid? And, Doug, I don't know why. I'm just one of those people. I don't have fear. I kind of like just leap and then, think about it
Hey,
later.
You became an actress. You got into the actor studio. That's where I met you. You have to be a certain nut and be willing to take those chances just to get into that school where we were bound to meet.
That's right. Yeah. So I didn't really have fear. But also I felt very safe with the Kurdish army. Like when we landed, they had, soldiers there to pick us up, and they went with us everywhere. And, I felt safe. I mean, as safe as you can be. I mean, it was serious. Like Pastor Kevin, before I left, had asked me, he said, did you get life insurance? And I said, no, why? And he goes, well, in case they have to send your body back. And I go,
why do you
think? This is serious. So it was, but between God and between the Kurdish army, I felt good. I felt safe.
Fucking A. Okay, with that introduction, and that's like the latest project that, again, friends, I'll link in the description box if you'd like to see the full documentary. Where would you like to go next with this, Kelly? You want to cover the more global scene, the US, which you
Yeah.
kind of are coming up next, or do you want to take people first to kind of what we touched upon before with the more Thailand-esque sex trafficking and how older men basically go prey on
Yeah,
underage
let's
women
talk
and how
about
it's
that. I mean,
all
that's part
acceptable?
of the whole global sex trafficking, and it's that's what even started me on this journey. Was I had seen a episode on Dateline about sex tourism in Thailand, and
Right.
it just sickened me. But basically, it gives pedophiles a green light to fly to Thailand and rape children, and they're Westerners. They're Americans, they're Australians, and they're Europeans, and it's quite sick. And I when I went over there, I saw it with my own eyes. And there's this, we talked about this earlier, Doug, because it's actually illegal, prostitution and obviously sex trafficking in Thailand, but you wouldn't know it. There's this place called the Nana Plaza, and it's in Bangkok, and it's like 5 stories high, and it's lit up neon, like Vegas on steroids, like crazy. And each floor, and all these Westerners come to Bangkok specifically to the Nana Plaza, and each floor has, it's like shopping. They have, uh, you know, 2-year-olds, they have boys, they have transgenders, they have, 12-year-olds, they have, whatever they want, they get. It's so sick. It's so sick, and Thailand is a funny place because it's the most aesthetically beautiful place I've ever been, but yet there's this unbelievable darkness that happens when the lights go down at night, when the sun goes down. It's like this evil darkness. It's like it's really a strange place because it's
Wow.
so beautiful.
Could you feel the energy, Kelly? It is absolutely beautiful. Could you feel like the dark energy, so
Yeah,
to speak, just when you were filming and around this kind of sickness?
absolutely. I was because I was filming undercover. And one gentleman that I don't even want to call him a gentleman, but this man, I don't know how old he was, maybe 45, 50. Anyhow, he saw that I had a camera and he flipped me off. He went like this in front of his face to cover his face. And I looked at him and I said, "You just made the cut. Hopefully your wife sees you." And I
I'm
kept
sure a
walking.
lot of them tried to do that and made the cut because you must. Kelly? Did they know you were undercover? Were you able to hide that pretty well? Was there ever worry about what would happen if you were found out?
Again, I don't worry about those things, but I was with undercover agents. You
And
know
you
what I
had
mean?
what
So
cameras on your hidden? Obviously, you're not
yes,
going in there with
yeah.
a film crew like
But
on
but when
Cops.
but when that man saw me, it wasn't an undercover camera. I had a huge camera on my shoulder, and I was walking. I wanted to get the whole walking down the Nana Plaza. I wanted to get it, and it's in the short. You'll see it.
Well,
It's
we'll
in
show it
the
right now, Kelly. We'll
yeah,
show for
yeah.
people to see what we're talking about, and we covered this in the previous 2 videos, but let's show the trailer.
Well, okay.
Is this the wrong one?
Yeah. I mean, Cambodia's in this one, but
It's a
Thailand is
26
in the
second.
documentary short. I don't even know if you have that
I
link.
think if I don't, I'll find it. Is it this one by any chance, Kelly?
It'll say 20. No, that's the USA docuseries. It says 26 seconds documentary short. Sex
Okay.
tourism in Thailand.
Tell you what, let's pull up your channel. I'm going to
Yeah.
scroll down and you tell me where it is and we'll play
Okay.
it.
I'll definitely show you. Okay.
You
Right
sure you
there,
don't
the
want to
little
play
girl.
OJ? Because he was also used to be a Scientologist.
No,
He
that's
he just
not
made it
OJ.
clear.
That's
Oh, really?
Bill
Oh, sorry.
Cosby.
What's the difference, right? Okay,
Yeah.
where are we going?
Okay. This little girl on the left. That's
Right
the
here?
documentary short.
Wow, nice view count too, man.
Mm-hmm.
8.2 thousand with 1.7K, 7.8. Guys, please subscribe to her channel too. I'll leave a link in the description box. She has a lot of amazing work up here that she's put a lot of work in.
There's over 1.2 million children lured every single year into the sex trade. I'd never heard of people selling people, let alone selling children. Pretty much everyone is totally disgusted when they hear about grown men having sex with children. Nobody is okay with that.
Kelly, I want to pause 1 minute and take it back. Guys, are we having lagging problems? Because Outback says that they're having lagging problems, but is anybody else having problems? Because we have been having little internet weird YouTube shit happening lately. Can you put a 1 in the chat if it's fine and not buffering, and 2 if there's a problem, real quick? And while you're at it, thanks, Karina. One of our fine mods. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Please. Doug puts his heart into this videos, and so does Kelly, for all of us, and buy a coffee or a subscription. Okay, so we're good to go, Star. Rosebud, it's good to see you as well. So we're getting 1s. I'm sorry, Outback. It must be something having to do with the Outback, but it looks like we're not lagging. So let's start from the beginning with this documentary trailer.
There's over 1.2 million children lured every single year into the sex trade. I'd never heard of people selling people, let alone selling children. Pretty much everyone is totally disgusted when they hear about grown men having sex with children. Nobody is okay with that. These kids don't have a mum and dad that are going to stand up for them. More than half of our girls that we've rescued, their parents are addicted to drugs, are thinking about how am I going to pay for my next fix. And sometimes, sadly, they want a new fridge, they want a TV. So send the kid in.
ពេលខ្ញុំមកដំបូងខ្ញុំខ្លាចណាស់ប៉ុន្តែបន្ទាប់ពី2-3ថ្ងៃកន្លងទៅបន្ទាប់ពីគេប្រាប់ខ្ញុំធ្វើអញ្ចេះធ្វើអញ្ចោះខ្ញុំក៏អាចទទួលយកបានខ្លះៗភ្ញៀវខ្លះចូលចិត្តប៉ះពាល់ខ្លួនប្រាណខ្ញុំមិនចូលចិត្តតែមិនអាចនិយាយអីកើតព្រោះខ្ញុំខ្លាចគេទៅប្រាប់មេការហើយខ្លាចមេការដេញចេញខ្ញុំគ្មានសិទ្ធិនឹងជ្រើសរើសខ្ញុំគ្មានទីកន្លែងនឹងទៅពីឈ្មោះខ្ញុំតែឈ្មោះខ្ញុំត្រូវបានគេបំបត្តិគេឲ្យខ្ញុំប្រើលេខជំនួសលេខនេះគឺលេខ26ការងាររបស់ខ្ញុំក្មេងស្រីដែលត្រូវជ្រើសរើស
This kid, she's taken to a room and she's violently raped night after night. On average 4 or 5 times every single night. She would scream at the top of her lungs for somebody, for anybody to come and rescue her.
Drips from my veins. What's wrong with me? And I imagine such things, and if only for a moment, let there be peace.
These kids are born into it. If we can bring awareness to the point where governments and these tourists that are coming over here say it's not right that this is happening to children, and boycott coming to some of these places, because a lot of people don't know that children are being used for sex, and not just one time, many times, selling them over and over and over again.
ចឹងណាចាថ្មីខ្ញុំច្រើននេះមកហើយមានតែ5នាក់ឡើង6 7នាក់ចាហើយច្រើននិយាយទៅដបងច្រើនតែពេលខ្ញុំឈឺពេកខ្ញុំប៉ាម្នាក់ក៏ខ្ញុំឈឺដែរតែពេលយូរទៅពេលនោះខ្ញុំគិតចឹងដែរខ្ញុំគិតថាការអញ្ចឹងរហូតហើយក៏ខ្ញុំគិតថា
We have two ways of rescuing them. First way is what we call the soft rescue, where we just build a relationship with the girls. We're always posing as customers or businessmen. The other way to rescue is what we call the hard rescues, where we work with the police and organise raids that are housing these underage kids. The difficult bit was getting the girls out without the pimps knowing where they were going, because obviously they made the pimps good money.
We've had guns pulled and we've had to muscle our way out, and I get death threats fairly regularly, and so there is an element of danger. I honestly don't care if people are aware or not. I only care if you're going to do something. So if I've spoken to you and told you these stories and you leave aware, no one's gained anything. The kid who's still trapped in the brothel hasn't been helped. The kid that's been rescued waiting to be restored hasn't been helped. You've just been made aware. So unless someone becomes their voice for that kid who has no voice, no one's ever going to hear the cry, no one's ever going to respond, no one's ever going to do anything. You know, we can all be a voice. We can all do it, and if we don't do it, she'll be screaming again tomorrow night.
All I want is written on my face. You're bound to find something, and all your words that held me into place.
What the fuck, Kelly?
You know, it's interesting
Wait,
because
one second.
Yeah.
The production value was way better than where we were when we were talking a few years ago. You didn't give me a trigger warning. That was really, really fucked up to watch and hard. I mean,
Sorry.
not what you did. The work was fantastic, but let that be a reminder to people when we have predators, even in our own community, like Mark Fisher. Let that be a reminder to people that might make light of this. And there's a lot to unpack with what we just saw. Sorry, friends, probably should have given you a trigger warning on that. Kelly, where do you want to start in explaining this? And
well, it's interesting.
There's the part. I'm sorry. There's the part that really bothered me in this. It just got triggered again. Didn't she say that even though, and you'll break this down. I'm sorry to interrupt and be long-winded, Kelly, but I know it's illegal, but it's allowed, right? Which we'll talk about. But the most disgusting part is the parents are happy when they have a daughter, for example, that they know they can sell off at a young age. So this is where it gets me. It's just like being born into a cult where they're happy because they're going to have their daughter pay for their lifestyle by having her molested by grown men that come over to Thailand, right?
It's actually horrific but true. Doug, I haven't seen the short in a while, and it was interesting to watch right now. And because I'm actually proud of it, because my whole goal was to show what sex trafficking looks like in each country, right? And that's what it looks like in Thailand and Cambodia. In Thailand, it's in the Nana Plaza, and in Cambodia, there are like these karaoke bars. And so the audience got to see what it looks like in Cambodia and Thailand. But what I didn't include in that video, which because at that time I was just doing a short, and I knew I was going to include Thailand again later at a later date in the whole feature. But what I didn't include was just what you're talking about, which is in third world countries, especially Thailand, Cambodia, India, Nepal, like really poor countries, the parents will sell their own children. And for that reason, to take care of their lifestyle. And what's really sick is that a lot of them don't work. They're drug addicts and they just want like a new TV or a new fridge. And so they'll sacrifice their child, their daughter. And they usually pick the first female born to go. They send them to the city because they live in these, villages out of the city, and they'll send their daughter into the city to work at these clubs, and she sends all her money home to take care of their whole family, the rest of the siblings and the parents. But usually the parents, I mean, it's not, I mean, they're usually drug addicts, they don't have any job. It's like, it's awful. It's awful. But you know what, Doug? It happens here. I've seen it. A mother that's on crack, she'll pimp her kid out to get high. I mean, so it's no different.
Yeah.
It's no
Are there
different.
any specific well, would one of the differences be that even though it's illegal in places like Thailand and Cambodia, it's legal and allowed? Like you said, they have 5-story buildings with
Yeah,
neon
neon.
lights. So how does that work compared to the US where it might be more
It's
covert or
It's the
online?
same everywhere, and unfortunately, even here in the U.S., but especially in third world countries. But the police are usually they turn a blind eye because it's one of two things, or both. They usually are sleeping with these girls themselves, so they get to do it free. If they don't, they
The
just
police
turn a blind
themselves,
eye.
Kelly? The
Or
police and authorities are sleeping with the girls
yes,
themselves?
yes, or the madams are paying the police off. But everything from sex trafficking is all about money. Somebody is making money off the vulnerability of women and children. And
Not
it's
too
bad I mean, there's a war on our children, Doug. It's bad.
yeah,
I mean, they'll traffic a child until they're so used up, and then they'll kill them and sell them for their organs. So they get every dime out of them as they can. And these are like, you know, street children and poverty stricken children. And, like in Damascus and in Nepal and India and Cambodia. I mean, they find these children that there's no way, they're not linked to parents. And it's happening right here, Doug. 100,000 children are missing from the border, from Mexico into the US. Where are those children? They're not accounted for. Where are they? They're being trafficked, and at some point they'll be killed for their organs. That's what's happening. It's really sick, Doug.
So it's a
It's
whole
heavy and it's real, and
I believe you. I know what you're talking about. And it's so intertwined. There's so much money. Everything
yes,
from the sex
yes,
trafficking to what they can do when they use them up, that it's
yes,
almost impossible to break the system because there's no integrity in there and everybody's basically getting rich off of it. So
yes.
it's protected even though it's illegal.
That's right. That's right. Pretty awful. Pretty awful.
Maybe this is towards the end of the conversation, but could you quickly, just to maybe get this going upbeat a little bit more, what are your opinions about what some of the solutions could be to take down such a lucrative problem?
Well, in third world countries, it's going to be very hard. It's first of all, they're not our countries. I mean, of course, there's great NGOs doing great work and rescuing and restoring. But the poverty is so severe in third world countries that, and the laws aren't as strict as here. It's going to be hard. But here in the U.S., I think the attack is all about the demand. You have to go after the Johns. If there's enough, for instance, if a John, first of all, if they're with a child, they go to prison. That's it.
Yeah, no shit. Or
But
I
if it's
say
with,
chop their balls off, and I
well,
mean,
I'd like that, but they won't do that. But if it's severe enough, the punishment, meaning, they're going to prison for the rest of their life. But more importantly, and that's the trafficker, the selling the children, right? But I'm talking about the Johns. If the Johns have a severe enough punishment, like $50,000 fine and 5 years in jail, because they won't go 5 years. They'll go 1 year in jail, right? They never serve the whole time. But if you had to pay 50 grand and he has to tell his wife, I need to pay this fine, and now I'm going away and I can't bring money into the family because I got to go to jail, there'd be less of it. There'd be less of the demand. There'd be less of men buying children and women.
on the flip side of that, is there anything you can do legally to, this is probably utopian and impossible, but to, do something sensible and actually make it illegal? and start
Well, it is
arresting
illegal.
people that come over to do this? So
It is illegal,
can
but
you
it's
explain
still
that a little
happening.
bit?
It's
Is there
still happening.
ever
You know, there's this great organization. Well, it's not an organization, but in San Diego, San Diego, I was very impressed with San Diego. They really, from A to Z, are attacking this in all ends. But they have a John School in San Diego, and there should be a John School in every city and every state in the United States for sure, because that's attacking the demand. So if a man gets caught, not with children, because children, they're going to jail. But if it's 18 and older, and I want you to be clear with this with your audience, an 18-year-old was trafficked at 12, 13, 14, 15. She's just now 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she needs, she has tons of trauma that she's gone through, and she needs restoration. And, that's a child, still. But anyhow, if a man's with someone 18 and older and they get caught, they have to go to John School in San Diego. And in John School, I think, I can't remember. There's a video in my YouTube channel, and they can check it out. But I think it was 16 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it is. But they too have to tell their wife, every Thursday night, I got to go to John School now. And so now their wife knows. Now they have to complete this program. Otherwise, this is a way for them not to get in bigger trouble. But what they do at the John Schools, they have survivors speak. They have John speak that were addicted to pornography. And so it makes it, first of all, a real human being when a survivor's speaking, but also they hear a John speaking where they have their issue. They're addicted to pornography and sex. And then they also have police officers speak to tell them, the kind of trouble they can get in. And the rate of them not reoffending is very high. Like the John School's working. So I'm hoping that, they implement this, nationwide in every state and every city. They need it. They need it.
There's a couple of good points, Kelly, popping off here. Lovett says pedos get such light sentences here in the USA.
Yep.
That's true. And
That's
then also
true.
one other thing I wanted to fire off here, which is a good point by Julie. What would you say to jail terms will only send things more underground because desire will always be because of other factors?
What was the question? What?
So jail terms will only send things more underground. Desire will always be because of other factors, like the demand. In other words, people will always want it and such. Is that but you're saying this is a stiff enough sentence where they have a tendency not to reoffend?
I'm not talking about the rare cases of pedophiles, that the ones that get on planes and go to Thailand. This is a whole nother thing. That's why I did the short documentary. I thought awareness needs to be created enough, get loud. People need to get loud enough where if a tourist goes to Thailand and they're not there for a legitimate work, or like, they need to be arrested immediately before they even rape a child. Like, what are you doing over here? Right? There needs to be much more awareness. I thought my film would create awareness, and it has, but it needs to be bigger, louder, and more people. And things have improved since I've done that short. Look at Sound of Freedom. Things are getting more exposed and more awareness created. But I believe, like some of your viewers, it
Kelly,
needs to be
it's such
harsh.
an endemic problem. Everybody's talking about Epstein and shit, and that's just kind of, where's the it's at the top where we got to cut the snake
where
off.
is that list?
Right, Nerm, Doug, check out U.S. politicians running for 2023 campaign.
Yep.
The answer. And that's only part of the culprits. But we don't want to digress too much, right? But that's why I'm so happy you're shedding it on, not just a spotlight on probably one of the most pandemic problems we have, a real pandemic of pedos, but bringing it into a form that's, I don't want to say entertaining, Kelly, that's the wrong word, but the way you put this together, I've watched it, it's really professional, and I think it will get the message out in a way that's, you almost had me crying in that last thing. You should have fucking warned me, man. I remember seeing the previous version. It wasn't nearly that heavy.
Did you see the guy that flipped me off, though? When I was going down the in Nana Plaza down the red light?
No, I didn't catch
you didn't?
That was in there?
He goes like this. He covers his face. I blurred it out. I blurred it out a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, he
catch
flipped me
it.
off.
Kelly,
Anyway.
Kelly Philosophy's got a quick question before we carry on. Doug, Kelly, can U.S. citizens be convicted of sex crimes committed overseas? That's a good question.
Yes, they can.
We have
Yes,
this
they
law in
can.
New Zealand, but it's not enforced.
Yep. But a lot get through the cracks.
I'm sure. It's probably harder to convict someone on this than it is to just get away with it. Unless you have Chris Hansen of what was that pedophile show where he, shows up and embarrasses the crap out of people so much.
Oh, does he?
You remember that, Chris Hansen? Guys, help me in the chat. That pedophile show that was a big hit that I'm drawing a blank on that Chris Hansen, but that's irrelevant to what we're talking about. Anyways, Kelly, where would you like to pick it up from?
So, well, actually, why don't you show the trailer for the U.S. doc series that I'm getting ready to start editing and work on. I did a trailer for.
Just show me where it's at. I'll scroll
you
down.
actually had it. It is on my YouTube channel too. It's go to playlist, and then go to trailers, and it's that one that says USA docuseries. I just want your audience to.
By the way, I wanted to point out that the soundtrack is by my 80s idol, Tiffany. I think we're alone now.
She's a very good friend of mine, and she's allowing me to use any music I want from her albums. Isn't that sweet?
That is sweet. I'd love to talk to her too. And
yeah, she's a great girl.
Have me sing I Wish We're Alone Now before we begin. I'm sure she gets that request all the time. What are we looking for here, Kelly? This one?
Oh, the USA docuseries. It's right on the top.
Okay, and please explain one more time what we're about to watch before.
Okay, this is a trailer that because we're pitching to networks for a docuseries just for the U.S. Because it's such an issue here, and people don't think it's here in the U.S. They think it's just in third world countries. Yeah. So we're going to do. We hope gets picked up, but this is a trailer for the USA docuseries.
Okay.
The more girls that talk, the more scared they're going to become. And the more times that we talk, the more girls are going to try to shut up. And they call us snitches, by the way. We're dirty in the game.
No woman and no girl wakes up one morning and says, hey, I want to sell my body for the rest of my life and I want to make money from it. Not one.
I had no idea that somebody who was making money off of me was trafficking me.
I was sleeping with doctors, lawyers, officers, men that were married, men that had kids my age.
That night was my rude awakening. That night, first night I got sex trafficked. Took all my money. He beat me.
I remember him hitting me so hard one time I was knocked out.
I've had a gun held to my head. I've been pistol whipped. I've had a huge gash.
If I came in and said, hey, Daddy, I can only make 600 tonight, I was getting knocked out.
I always thought the more I would love them, the more I would do, the more I would obey, that I would get the one thing that I never had was love.
I love that man with all my heart. For 5 years, I didn't care what anyone said about him because I love that man. I would have died for that man, and he knew it.
People didn't understand why I wouldn't leave because my normal was getting hit upside my head. My normal was sleeping with men 10 to 15 times a night. Like, that was my normal, performing anal sex and oral sex at 12, 13, 14 years old. I fell in love with him because everything that was normal in my life that was happening had happened to me while I was a kid.
Wow, what would you like to say about that, Kelly? Where do you want to begin?
This one's a hard one for me. When you are reading subtitles, it's a little softer than when we hear upfront personal English and candid. It's harder. It's even hard for me. I also know these girls, and they're and I love them. And by the way, Annie LeBert, the one with the blonde, and then Ori, the black girl, they're both survivor advocates now. So they're completely on the other side, healed, restored, and like Ori trains the FBI in how to find traffickers. So these girls are incredible, and Annie LeBert has her own nonprofit, and she rescues girls in Las Vegas, and she restores them. She has a restoration home. So these girls are on the other side. So with that being said, that's why they can be so strong, I think, because I've interviewed girls that had barely gotten rescued, and it's a completely different thing. You know what I mean? They're not restored yet.
Quick
Any,
interjection before we carry on with
yeah.
that, because it's a good question, Carl. Female sex tourism is a thing too. Is that addressed in this documentary, and is it in fact a thing?
Female, you mean like
Female sex
women buying
tourism.
boys?
I assume that's what Carl would mean.
Yeah, it definitely exists. When I was in Thailand, like, because I looked like a housewife when I was there, and I couldn't believe when I was in Nana Plaza, they were like saying, "Come, come," like
Wow.
like I would want to
Right, 'cause
buy.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was bizarre to me. I'm like, what? Like a woman would buy? I mean, I couldn't believe it. Yes,
So the
it's a
answer to
thing.
that is yes, Carl.
That's a yes. And what's also a yes is, and my project is more, I just happen with the organizations I with, they had mostly female survivors, so that's what I interviewed. But boys are trafficked too. I have a video on my
Yeah.
YouTube
We did
channel,
it, and we
which is
showed
one
that.
of, yeah. And boys are definitely trafficked just as much, little boys,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
usually to men. Usually to men.
Would you say that the problem, as we kind of wind down or whatever, I mean, you've done a fantastic job of laying out, because we had a lot of documentaries to cover. It's a complex subject, but
Yeah.
could we maybe lead into, I don't know, the dynamics and perhaps the healing of what these gals go through, and sometimes men, because that boys are sex trafficked too, which we covered in interview
Yeah.
number 2, is really powerful and was really mind opening. How did they get out, Kelly? How did the nonprofits and or rescues play into that? And then how the fuck do you help them, or do they help themselves heal?
Well, I don't help them. I'm not only creating awareness, but I'm documenting what these nonprofits are doing and giving a voice to the survivors. So I'm not doing any healing. I wish I was. No.
I know you're not, Kelly, but I wanted to know, well, the nonprofits, the resources you mentioned. And by the way, we have a whole nonprofit thing going on within our community. How can we tell if nonprofits are legitimate? How do you vet them, etc.? Please carry on.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because there's a lot of nonprofits that, they take money and the money never goes to the actual issue or survivors. Or, I mean, look at even Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, they kept the money. It didn't go to the inner cities, so there's a lot of bad nonprofits. There are. The Clinton Foundation was horrible. I mean,
That can be a major thing for narcissists, psychopaths, and the people fucking us to hide behind nonprofits.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Good point.
I mean, look at the Clinton Foundation, got billions of dollars, and they only built 6 houses in Haiti. I mean, anyhow. So yes, there's a lot of bad nonprofits. I personally, I have walked with these people. I have filmed, undercover with them. They have, I've met the girls that they've rescued and restored. And I can say from my experience with the nonprofits I've partnered with, they're legitimate. I see them in the trenches doing the real work. But they're also small, they're small nonprofits, they're not these huge Red Cross, they're not these huge, they're very small nonprofits. And believe me, I've been now in it long enough. If I was to see something weird, I would immediately not highlight them in any of my work immediately.
Have you come across anything in the years that you shot and the editing process where you did have to take something out, or you found out that you got something?
Yeah, the only thing I've had to take out is and I just because it's the right thing to do. But I interviewed a lot, probably 8 to 10 survivors in each country. But here in the US, I probably interviewed about 25 survivors.
Mhm.
And there has been 3 that have asked, after time passed, a couple of them got married, one had a baby, and they just said they no longer wanted to be in the project. And I'm gonna honor that, because now legally would they have, because they signed an appearance release. I mean, legally I could use them, but but morally I will not, because of the fact that they've already, I'm not going to exploit them more than they've already been exploited in their life. You know, that's not what I'm in this for, you know, and there are a lot of films on sex trafficking that they're in it for the sexiness, they're in it for the money, that, you know, and that means they're exploiting survivors even more.
We get that in our
I don't
community
agree
too,
with that.
and the ex-cult community too, survivors being exploited. It's not unique to what you're talking about, so I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. So anyway, so back to your question, have I had to take things out? Yes, when survivors have asked to not be in it. But mind you, if the project gets out there in a big way, let's say, you know, on a network, right? Then it would be too late, right? Like, you know, right now it's so small and nothing has gotten big where I've been able to like retract. But like, for instance, my film, the feature doc that's on Epic, I can't take anything out of that now. It's out. you know what I mean?
Did you have to get a release signed by the people in the film or anything? Surely you had to get.
I have to have appearance releases by everyone. I have to have license agreements with the nonprofits, and yeah, it's a whole thing, you know. And I have, I probably spent more money on attorneys, Doug, than I spent on anything. You know,
and
I had to make
despite that,
sure.
Kelly, despite that, they still had an out that you would allow them if they really like, or hey, I'm in danger if you fucking produce this. I'm sorry, but I got to get out of this film.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, like, right now the feature doc is out in Epic. I couldn't now take something
I understand
out.
that.
Yeah. So, but prior, yeah, I just, I don't have to exploit anyone. I have so much footage.
You don't anyways. I know you don't anyways, and I know you let somebody out if they needed to. But it's just such a touch and go feel where, you know, you put your heart into it, and you know, you never know if someone's going to want to get out of the thing.
Yeah, I have this. First of all, I just have integrity with survivors and the nonprofits I partner with. Period. But secondly, I just have a big belief, and I always have, that things happen for a reason. You know, and we have to honor and really appreciate when doors are shut. It's for a reason. Like the no's are just as important as the yeses. The no's are like more important. So a long time ago, that was in my, you know, pursuing my acting career, you know, that I learned that lesson. Like, you know, everything happens for a reason, and we may not see it, but the no's are usually more important than the yeses.
Do you mind if I ask if you had any backstory? And I think we covered this briefly in the previous interviews that led you to care about this. Did you have any experience where you were abused? Again, you don't have to say anything you don't want to. What draws you to such a dark subject that most people would pull away from?
Yeah, I totally, that's a legitimate question. I believe, I think I talked with you about this in one of our previous interviews, but I believe pursuing an acting career, I was definitely, I'm not trafficked. I'm not trafficked, but I was definitely exploited. You know, all actresses are, and I think because of that, I have a huge heart for the vulnerable. You know, because, you know, it's like, and, you know, I'm much older now, but when I was 20, I wish I would have had somebody guiding me or protecting me, you know. So these are children, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You know, they need someone to trust and someone to guide them. I remember when I was young, pursuing an acting career, when I was really young, you know, girls would come from, you know, other states, and they had nobody. And, you know, their family wasn't here. And I always felt my heart went out to them, because my family was in Orange County. I wasn't that far, you know, from LA, right? I could go home if I wanted. These girls could not. Like, they had to rely on being survivors in Hollywood. And so back to your question, now I'm not comparing actresses to survivors at all.
It's not too far off though, Kelly, because if you ask the Feldmans, and there's plenty of sexual abuse, not just Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood. So I understand, and you clarified before the difference, but there are similarities, just like I can relate everything to what you're talking about, even though it's not as bad, don't get me wrong, to being in a cult.
Well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. My experience wasn't as bad, but it was for children actors because they are being
That's
trafficked
right, it
among.
was. That's a real thing, guys. That's not a fucking Q thing. We don't do Q in that bullshit. There's plenty of evidence that many kids have been sexually abused in Hollywood, and
Yeah.
it still goes on today.
Yep. I believe Corey Feldman. I don't think he's lying.
Yeah, I know he's telling the truth, man. A lot of these
Yeah.
people are, but it's finally coming to consciousness where it doesn't sound like an out there Q conspiracy. Because as soon as you say that, Q was created so that people won't listen to you. But if you can get over that psyop, this shit's been going on in Hollywood forever, and it's an open secret, like Corey Feldman and many others have talked about. But again, I don't want to get sidetracked. But
Yeah.
the analogy you make, and why I don't go back to Hollywood, is learning what you learn in a cult, Hollywood, and the sex trafficking thing. I can personally relate to it as one package, so to speak.
I think I talked with you about this last time too, but I don't want to downplay the Me Too movement, but I was always a little had a little bit of a question mark because I was an actress, I know. And I remember when the whole thing came out with Weinstein, I was like, I've met 1,000 of those guys.
I bet you
he's
have.
the most powerful. He was the most, but so long story short, my experience, I'm not saying others, but that whole Me Too movement kind of hijacked the whole sex trafficking, and because they weren't trafficked, because they said there was a carrot. They wanted to become famous, and they said yes, but they could have said no.
Can I say, I have to jump in real quick,
at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, they don't have a choice.
Totally, but to counter that, you got the Feldmans and the stage mothers that sell them into Hollywood.
That's true.
And then also, I don't want to overshadow Danny Masterson from the Scientology cult was convicted to life in prison with the possibility of parole after about 25 years for raping women, which appertains to Hollywood, the cult, and everything. So I just wanted to let you know there is a carryover. I know you already know this, but to the audience. So the YouTube, that happened right during the YouTube movement when the police went forward with the allegations that where he was raping women all the way back to like 2003-ish. So that all, I'm just saying I agree with you.
And
that
I don't doubt it.
To hijack and real deeper shit. I mean, again, look at Epstein. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein magically, quote, hung himself, and we never get to know at the top of the cult the known proven sex trafficking of the client list that he would have alone. Anyways, again, I always get detract and get into the bigger picture, but it's appropriate for what we're talking about.
I'm not downplaying it. I'm just saying I'm not downplaying anyone being exploited or somebody profiting off of the vulnerability of someone. I'm not downplaying that. What I'm saying though is there's a difference of a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old being trafficked than a woman saying yes or no to fame.
Totally.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying sometimes it's not saying yes or no to fame. In Hames and Feldman's situation, just as one example.
Not them. They were children.
Totally.
I'm not talking about them.
They were literally pimped out by their mom to be
I'm not talking about them.
molested.
I'm talking about the women.
Because Corey Haim, and he put it in a documentary. I believe he's telling the truth.
Oh, I do too.
That Charlie Sheen raped him when he was 15 years old. So that kind of stuff really does happen. And they were sold out and pimped out by their parents, who were stage mothers, just like what you're talking about
Thailand and India.
Exactly, where they have a kid and they know they're set, right? Because they can go have their Hollywood star kid, no matter what happens to them, if they're sexually abused,
well,
bring home the money.
That?
That's what River Phoenix fucking did.
Well, also the parents of these kids that were with Michael Jackson. I mean, that's what those parents were doing.
Exactly.
I mean, if I was a parent, I wouldn't let my kids stay the night at Michael Jackson's house. Maybe we'd go visit and go around the Ferris wheel, but I wouldn't let them stay the night.
Either, though. I don't know what I don't necessarily believe that he was an abuser. That's another story. I don't want to. I don't know.
I know
that one,
it's a hard one because I
don't.
love
My jury's
Jackson.
out on that. But hey,
one.
let's take up this question with philosophy, what might appertain to that. And I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, Kelly. And I know you already know this because we were in Hollywood for years.
Yeah.
So, But the point you're making is there is, generally speaking, a big difference for the majority of Hollywood stars who will give a little something because they want a little something.
Yeah,
They're not
that's what
pimped
I
out
mean.
by
I
stage
don't mean
mothers in
children.
general. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Philosophy says, do you think actors and models are ripe for exploitation?
Yep.
Yeah. Because it's an
Yeah.
industry that sells people as products. Actors are definitely pimped out as high-end escorts, a la Haie Fleece, as well, right, Kelly?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, a few things are happening here. You know this, Doug. Actors usually, it's why they're so creative geniuses and so talented, but they've had some kind of abuse already when they were a kid. And that's why they become, they're talented. We
Yep,
know
it's why
that,
they can
right?
dissociate, Kelly. It's why they can also go away and to run away from the trauma in their
Yep.
imagination, which can make them great artists. And you're
Yep.
right, they do specifically, not everyone,
Yep.
look for trauma-based mind
Yep.
control, abusive background, so they can be controlled to hypnotize and control the
Yep.
public. And they are a
Yep.
product.
And yeah, absolutely. But yes,
Kelly,
the
just to
answer
bring
is
you
yes.
back, yeah, I didn't want to. I'm so sorry to get off track, but that was a great little 10 minutes chat back and forth. But I didn't want to get you off track. You were saying that, generally speaking, there's a huge difference about being sold, as
Yes.
kids. And then also, again, to bring it back, what are some because you've not personally rescued people, but you interviewed people that were rescued. So how
Mhm.
the hell did they get out? Did they have to go in their military style to get them out? And then also, how do they heal, or do they ever heal from this primal wound of their freaking parents selling them off at a
No,
young age?
actually, whether it's a DA, a police officer, or even maybe a nurse practitioner or whoever that notices something's wrong, all you can do is say, are you okay? Do you need help? Do you want out? But you can't force them, because then you're doing the same thing a trafficker is. This is what's hard. It's just like
It's
any
just like you
addiction.
can't force anybody out of a cult, and I couldn't grab my parents and pull them
Yes.
out. They're under the addiction.
Yeah.
That's all they know.
They have to say, yes, I want to go. Unless it's a child. Unless it's a child, it's a whole nother thing. But if they're 18 and older, that person, even a police officer, he cannot force her. He has to say, do you want out? We have help. We have resources. And usually they say, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, because they're the part that's missing in that equation, Kelly, too, and I don't know how to handle it, is they're under coercive control. They've literally been brainwashed to not want to leave.
Did you see the trailer I did of the US? All of them were in love with their pimps.
I understand that. Because they've been trauma bonded by the parents who love them.
Yes.
It's so sick. It's just reminding me of this fucking twin flame cult that keeps coming into my consciousness, man. I'm telling you, Kelly, the cults, the trauma bonding, it's all like the predators, narcissists. It's all the same pattern, sex trafficking, and it's all Hollywood cults. They all seem to basically use the same playbook. So if we could learn it, maybe we don't have to depend so much on the authorities, but we can educate people to be proofed up for generations to come.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Also, just from the question that was asked, every survivor I interviewed were molested as a child. So by their, either a grandfather, a father, a brother, a neighbor, whatever, they were molested as a child. So that means their value of themselves has been broken down. And traffickers, since they know this, and they go after, that's why they really go after kids that are getting out of the social care system. When they've aged out, they're only 18, yet they have no parents, no education, and no money. And they want to belong, they want to be loved. And these traffickers come in like their boyfriends. They call them Romeo pimps. They come in like their boyfriends, and they go willingly. The girls go willingly because they have nothing and nobody. It's awful.
They have nothing. They go willingly because they need money. They need to survive, basically.
But it's more than that. They need belonging. They need to be loved.
Hence the vulnerability, which is what the predators out.
Yes.
Kelly,
and then after 2 weeks of them pretending they're their boyfriend, then they take all of their, their license away and their phone away, and then, say, get out on the street and make money. And then they, if they don't do what they say, they, starve them. They don't feed them. Then it's really a psychological abuse, but they're dealing with children that have already been abused.
Exactly. So you have the primal wound, the trauma that sets them up to need a family, whatever. They're vulnerable, and then they get love bombed for 2 weeks. They fall in love and trauma bond with the abuser. Then the abuser pulls back the love and does a push pull to keep them under control to until they get out.
Yep, they're master manipulators, traffickers, master manipulators.
Yeah, of course they would be.
Yeah,
that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, like you really pumped that out tonight and really flowed this. I mean, you really made this interview easy considering the amount we had to cover and the different areas. I think we hit upon it. Do you mind hanging out for a little while before we, we'll show people again where they can subscribe and learn more about Kelly and watch your amazing documentary on Epoch TV. But would you mind hanging out for, a little 20 or 30 minutes to answer some questions and stuff?
Absolutely.
If you guys have any more questions, we've got, I don't know, about 10 of them pinned here. We'll see if we can move through these. And if we go fast, please let us know any more as we kind of wind down here. And we'll start with this, Kelly. And thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Despite the heaviness of the topic, I really appreciate you, Kelly, speaking out, and the audience for listening, because it's not necessarily the most pleasant thing, but it's really important. Super Anxiety Chick, how you doing? Hi, Doug. Been watching for a year, but always missed your lives. Well, welcome. I'm glad you made it tonight or in the morning, wherever you are. Where are you? Super. Nice to be here now. Would love to talk to you about dealing with anxiety, etc., if ever interested. The only problem with that super anxiety is that I simply don't have the time. Like, I have a life, I work, and then doing the YouTube channel, and then it takes something out of me personally. Getting back to people, I'm always backlogged on emails. If you guys have an email or text or whatever, then there's Discord and Instagram. It just takes forever to get back to people. There's not enough hours in the day to also heal other people and also feel people's emotions a lot. When I talk to them on the phone, I talk to a lot of people on the phone. It's just enough, guys, to do the interviews, the content, work, live a life and shit. And then I also get something taken out of me each time we do these interviews. I want to heal everybody in the world, but my friend, I just don't have time to sit down for a few hours, generally speaking, to freaking talk to people. I definitely had a different life before the pandemic, Kelly, and the YouTube channel. It's definitely added a lot, in terms of more work, but also a lot of healing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thanks for that. And let's get to Kelly's. Any questions for Kelly? Stand by for a drink of water. Damn. What a mind-blowing experience this has been. Like, I actually learned a lot, Kelly, just that I didn't learn from the previous 2 times talking.
Oh, good.
You've come a long
and
way,
I want
kid.
to share, too, with your audience and you that, you would think that me doing this project, because, obviously I'm dealing with
would
John
crush you, would make you feel.
Well, you would think that I would have, became more resentful with men, but I have to say,
Kelly, that's like perfect. That just happened to be the next question from Rosebud Amy. Kelly, how do you cope with your research?
People always ask me that question. Number one, I have unbelievable, all these nonprofit organizations I partner with, they are my prayer warriors. They are, I can call them up for any advice or anything I'm going through for prayer. I mean, and they're much more experienced than I am because they've been rescuing and restoring and reintegrating survivors from the sex trade for years with their nonprofit. So I have a great backup system. I also, I personally just have a huge belief in God, and I think that keeps me grounded. What else? I have been asked that even by some of the founders of the organizations. They said, Kelly, what are you doing for you? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, are you in therapy? And I said, for what? Should I be? And they go, yeah, because you get trauma transference because of me being around survivors and interviewing them. Their trauma, then it transfers onto me. And I said, I didn't realize that I had that. So, but my own therapy, I haven't gone to a clinical therapist. No, my own therapy is, I go to church. I work out. I personally live a very healthy lifestyle. And I don't mean just like in what you eat, but also in what I listen to and what, across the board. Like I only feed myself with good things. But I'm not opposed to going to therapy. I'm busy like Doug.
No, I understand, Kelly, and I
I'm
don't
a
think
professor, I teach, and I'm working on this project, and I'm just busy.
I don't think I mean, I'm no professional. I don't think you need it. Some people don't. Their healing can be the very thing that you're doing, and then some people do need therapy. And maybe I need therapy, but I wouldn't know it. But
But
this
I
is
do
my
want to share
therapy.
with you,
Yeah.
you would think that I would, being around traffickers and pimps and Johns, that I would be more resentful of men. But I have to tell you, just like your channel has healed you, this project has healed me in a big way, because I have met, and maybe this is answering her question, I have met incredible men like Pastor Kevin and the Saved in America, the ex-Navy SEALs that rescue survivors. It's like I have met men that they're honorable and they're warriors, and they do the right thing, and they put their life in danger to rescue children. Like I have just met incredible men. So that has healed me in a big way.
That's awesome to hear, and I know exactly what you're talking about on a different level. Who's
Yeah.
Mark Fisher? He's one of those creeps that were in the ex-Scientology community that goes to Thailand and has the pictures and brags about it all over his Facebook and shit.
Lovely.
That's who Mark
Why
Fisher
isn't he arrested if he's bragging about it and has photos of it?
Yeah, well, maybe we can drag you into this and put some more heat on the community at large, because we have a lot of creepers in the community. Jane, how are you? Ghislaine Maxwell's in jail for trafficking. The government has the client list. Why aren't they prosecuting these people? It's just disgusting, because those are the higher ups that would take down all the shenanigans. That's why,
Yep.
Jane, I'm sure you know that. Star R, step one would be to release the names in Epstein's book. I remember a town that put mugshots of every John arrested to shame them. That's a start. Yeah,
That's right.
And finally, unless we have any more questions, my friends, this will be the final one. Kurska, for another episode, I would love to hear her describe how she gets funding, etc. Do this. Actually, we did cover that, Kurska, in the first two, but Kelly, that's a perfect question to end off on. Would you like to
Yeah,
explain?
I can totally answer that. I personally, I paid for production myself, which is not a smart thing, but I did so that I could move forward and complete it. But I did promise myself I wasn't going to pay a dime for post-production, because post-production costs 3 times the amount of production. So when I got back from Thailand and Cambodia, and I kept filming in all of these countries, I started doing funding campaigns and crowdfunding. And it was over a period of 5 years, but I did raise probably 150,000. So it paid
And
back.
I know you did, because guys, she's not bullshitting. I've watched her struggle to get to where she's at now, and it's all been just hard work and working really hard to get people to support her. Sorry to interrupt.
So I definitely was able to, over a period of time, to crowdfund and make back the money to pay for production costs. And then I happen to be, a professor in film. So I with post-production, I have the editing suites, that I can use. And then, so a lot of things I didn't have to pay for, which is great. But of course, there's always a need for funding. But there's 2 things I want to tell you, is your audience, for those that are filmmakers, it's great to get a fiscal sponsor, because then your donors will have a tax write-off. And so they feel more inclined to donate, because they're going to have a tax write-off. So my fiscal sponsor is called From the Heart Production. She's really great. I also applied for tons of grants, which I got quite a few. And what else did I do? Oh, and
you also put it in the film festival, Kelly. You edited enough yourself, and then you promoted it and got backing by actually doing shorts of it, to build up funding and stuff too, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's been a long work, man. Lots of YouTube
I mean, the
videos,
one thing that I'd have to say to people, because I know we live in a world that wants things fast. If you're on a project that you believe in, or it's a good cause, know that you're going to go for the long haul, because the issue matters.
Especially when you're telling the truth versus just trying to make a buck. Then you definitely need to be prepared for the long haul.
And I always tell my students, and it's one thing I think that they've witnessed, because I've had a lot of interns on my project, but I hope that the one thing that I taught, 2 things that I hope that I taught them, was if you build the track, the train will come. Just build it, the train will come. And secondly, we're in a world of media, and you have a responsibility and you have a privilege, and it's best to pick projects that matter rather than just working on bullshit. Like we only have so much time on this planet, and I'd rather spend my time on something that matters than something that doesn't.
Fucking
I
yeah.
hope that helps.
Yeah, that's really well said. Find your purpose and roll with it. Or maybe
Yeah.
it comes to you, right, Kelly? Because I originally had such a different plan for my life following
Yeah.
my ambitions, and man, did it shift. But it's been better and unexpected. I
Yeah.
really want to thank you, Kelly, for joining us. And if you don't mind, I'd love to have you back soon.
Oh, I'd love to.
Sooner rather than later, to talk about what else is going on, because we did kind of just scratch the surface. But we got 3 interviews in the can. You're doing
Yes.
wonderful work. And I want to show people real quick one more time. And I'm going to link all this in the description box, my friend, where you can watch this movie, which we showed the trailer for, 26 seconds, ISIS, sex slaves, and other things. And then I'm going to link Kelly's YouTube channel in the description box, as mentioned before. Please give her a sub and support her, and check out her many amazing videos. Kelly, is there anything that you'd like to say that I missed as we end up? What is your
I would
outgoing
just
message?
say, there's so many issues in the world. Find what resonates with you. Find something that you feel is your purpose and that resonates with you. And again, just start building the track, and the train will come. I encourage people to, because we're at our best when we're walking in our purpose, for sure.
Well said. And just to end off, Richard, maybe we'll have Kelly on specifically to talk with this. We've touched upon it in many of the deep dive videos, and it's a very specific question that I actually really would like to talk about. And we'll cover this because it's a very in-depth question, I think, to do it justice. So I'll keep that in my brain, Richard. I always wondered how Scientology and Hollywood industry overlap regarding trafficking, knowing LAPD and Florida also, and other safe-pointed organizations that Scientology has in their pocket, close their eyes to their crimes. Again, another great question, and we'll take that up another time. Friends, we're going to leave out, I guess as is only appropriate, to with sort of the world cult outro, using Scientology as a microcosm for the macrocosm. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you soon. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the other side.
Bye, Doug. Thank you.
Kelly, I got to bring you back. I totally fucked that up. All that anticipation, guys, and I did the
What
wrong
happened?
fucking outro. Here it is.
Hard physical labor and intense ideological study are used to break the subject's will. Or is that the truth?